Well, they do say March is a winter month in Maine, and this weekend definitely proved that. We started out with our first batch of wintry precipitation, with some areas in southern and western Maine picking up a couple of inches of snow. Most of us in that area were between 3 and 5 inches. Highest I could find was 5.2 in East Baldwin. However, if you were outside of the range of the location of that warm front, picked up almost no snow accumulation. And this warm front is something that we're going to be talking about a lot because it's been very indicative of our weather. And I think something that's very interesting about it is the difference between the temperatures on the cold side versus the warm side of this warm front. 81 degrees was the high in New York City today, and Albany, which is only a couple of hours north, only 44 degrees, or us here in Portland, only 40 degrees. So a difference of 40 degrees in not that many miles, but it means you cross the warm front, and eventually the rest of that system is going to move toward us, which means our temperatures will warm up eventually, but not quite that much. You can see here in the radar over the past 18 hours where exactly that warm front was located. It coincides where we were seeing that snow, which is why our highest snowfall totals were in far western and southern Maine. Right now we are seeing a lull in the precipitation, but don't let it fool you because we have a lot more coming up. You can see here right where that warm front was located, that's all of where our snow reports came in. You can even follow it all the way back into New Hampshire, Vermont, and upstate New York. We have a lot more of this system to talk about. It is very far-reaching. It goes all the way from us here in Maine out to areas of the Midwest and the northern Great Plains, and then the cold front reaches all the way down towards the Gulf of Mexico. So it's quite expansive, and the rest of this precip still has a ways to go before it reaches us, which means we'll have precip to contend with both tomorrow and for your day on Monday. Because it is going to be of the wintry variety, we do have a winter weather advisory in place for the entire state, and that's in effect until Monday at 6 a.m. But I know some people might be a little bit worried because we are going to be talking about ice. So I wanted to point out that we are not in an ice storm warning. The ice storm warning here is for southern Vermont and areas of upstate New York, which means that where we are in Maine doesn't fall into the criteria of an ice storm warning, which means we have a little bit of ice to talk about, but I don't want you to worry about it too much because we won't have a ton to talk about. Now let's break down our precipitation hour by hour to see what we're dealing with. So we have the lull that's going to be happening overnight, but between 4 and 5 a.m. in the morning for tomorrow, the rest of the precip will begin to move into areas of southern and western Maine. We're going to start out here with a little bit of snow on the leading edge, but then we'll transition into some more mixed precipitation. That's what you can see here in this pink color. Now, mostly it's going to be a mixture between rain and snow. You might see some sleet, and what we're most worried about would be freezing rain. However, it's quite difficult to accumulate freezing rain during the day in almost April because the sun angle is so strong. Despite a lot of cloud cover, it still brings in a lot of solar radiation. Think about the reason that you can get a sunburn even when it's cloudy in the summer. Same reason it's hard to accumulate freezing rain during the day. So we might see a little bit, but I don't expect a lot. By the time we get into the afternoon, this mixed precip moves into areas of down east, central, and northern Maine. Even when we have a little bit of a break in the precip in areas of southern Maine in the afternoon, I think it's still going to be pretty dreary. You might have a lot of drizzle hanging around, both freezing drizzle and plain drizzle. Once the sun sets, though, that's fair game in terms of ice accumulation. We're not dealing with that solar radiation coming in anymore, so I think the best chance of accumulating it is going to be in areas inland, away from the coastline, and that will occur mostly overnight Sunday into early Monday morning. However, Monday morning, we start to bring in some warmer air, which means that will switch over, especially the coast, into just plain rain. So even by the time we get to Monday, maybe 3, 4, 5 in the morning, even though the sun hasn't come up yet, we're still advecting in enough warm air from the south that will switch over to plain rain, and those on and off plain rain showers will last on and off throughout basically the entire day on Monday. You might get a break around midday, but then a secondary line of showers comes through, another break possible around dinner time, and then the coastline will see some extra rain showers late Monday night into early Tuesday morning. And then once we get to Tuesday afternoon, you actually end up with a fair amount of sunshine. So something that we usually have to watch during the winter time and this time of year is our winter precipitation type. Obviously snow that we got today, easiest type. The entire column here of air is cold. Sleet, you end up with a rather thin layer of warm air that allows some melting and then significant refreezing before it hits the ground. Freezing rain, most complicated, where you have a much thicker layer of warm air that allows your snow to melt completely. So this is something that we'll be watching very closely as the warm front continues to approach as we get into tomorrow. I think most of us will be seeing a mixture between that sleet and freezing rain. So another reason why it would be difficult to accumulate that freezing rain along the coast is because of our wind direction. Our wind direction tomorrow afternoon is going to be off the water, which means our best chance to get that ice accretion once again is going to be in areas inland. So I've talked a lot about how we could or could not get it, but how much are we going to see? Usually, even just a little bit of ice can cause some damages, so we want to see numbers like the zeros, the 0.1s, and the 0.2s. So that means for most of us, we aren't going to get that much ice, so you might want to still put down your road and sidewalk treatments. Give yourself a little bit of extra time Sunday night and Monday morning, keeping in mind that things could be a little bit slick if you are traveling, but likely we won't see too many things like power outages. Because if you have 1/4 of an inch of ice or less, that's fairly limited impacts. You might see a couple of outages, there'll be a glaze of ice on the roads, but there won't be too much. This is where most of us are going to be. I think a couple of spots, especially in the mountains, could be between 1/4 and 1/2 an inch. This is a more elevated look where you have some icy roads or some hanging limbs. This is where you would have slightly more outages, and where I think no one should be would be the significant icing. That's where you could end up with a lot more widespread outages. I think most of us are going to be safely in this limited category here. So in total, that means we have a little bit of ice to deal with for the day tomorrow. So make sure you have your road treatments, give yourself a little bit of extra time, but I don't want anyone worrying too much about the ice for this storm system coming in. We will have more details tonight on News Center Maine at 11. So stay with us both on air, online, and stay safe tomorrow.